Karen, thank you so much for coming to the People Success Circle podcast today. I am so glad you're here.
Well, I am so excited for you to have me, and I love the journey of how we ended up here together, and I'm sure that will come out in our conversation in a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about it now. So I met Karen through a cohort of women speakers. We were working together to perfect our keynote speaking and learn more about how to be a keynote speaker. And so 4 months of Zoom calls together, and we formed a friendship and we're able to stay in touch.
Well, I think one of the things that I'll talk about when we talk about resilience, it is a cornerstone of what I share with folks, but it's creating a community of support in the different parts of you and knowing what you need to help you adapt and continue to persevere through things. And having colleagues like you and other of our cohort have really helped lift me up.
So can you share with me a little bit about your background and what led you to the work that you're doing today?
So I come naturally to speaking. I've spent majority of my career in sales and nonprofit development. So I have been presenting in some capacity since I was 22 years old, and I love a microphone. But it was always my passion project, not my profession. And I found the courage or the I don't know, the desire to make a career switch when I was downsized about 18 months ago from a position that I loved. And I was getting married 2 weeks later, and my husband and I discussed it. He's like, well, why not now? Why not take that passion and make it a profession? And, I came to my topic and what it is that I do through the journey that I faced almost 20 years ago, having a daughter. My oldest daughter was diagnosed and she passed away from pediatric cancer. And as you can imagine, or anybody who's listening can imagine, if you're a parent, that is the ultimate worst possible thing you can imagine. And what time healed and provided me was this journey of discovery, not just into grief, but into my life and really what I had already overcome and how each subsequent hardship led me to be stronger for the next one or the opportunities that came ahead. And I realized that simple word resilience kept coming up over and over again. So then I paused and started researching and looking into it and found myself wanting to share the story and empower people to realize that they've overcome everything they've overcome and teach them how to leverage that.
I don't know that many people know this, but I'm a pediatric cancer survivor. I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old and have a different perspective of resilience. And I can just only imagine how hard that was.
Well, when I think of my daughter, Caroline, and the lessons she taught me in just 7 3/4 years, her resilience, they always say children are resilient. It was the grace that she showed at a baby age.
Yeah.
That let me walk forward and go, these kids, you, Mindy, have a lens that adults don't always see and have. And as I walked through and came out of the fog of that time, it gave me an anchor of who I wanted to be in a different way, how through sharing my story and even through her testimony, I'm the voice of that. If I can help somebody else on the journey and maybe see it, okay, this did not happen to you. You experienced it, but it's happening for a reason and you have a choice on what you do with it. Now, I don't advocate sharing that with somebody who's in the depths of grief. I didn't wake up the day after she passed and have on this mindset. It came to me over the journey of healing. And that's when it hit me. And that's where Shine Forward was born.
I love it. And I love that you were able to turn a very hard situation into a positive impact that you can have on other people by sharing your journey and helping them learn about resilience too. So what inspired you to focus on resilience in the workplace?
I was the head of development for the Alzheimer's Association here in Southwestern Ohio. And I worked with some amazing board members. One in particular was an executive VP at a bank doing private banking. She held a high profile role and dealt with millions of dollars every day. Just a really highly regarded woman. But she had a husband at home who was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. And I got to know her as her journey grew. And then she shared her journey of going to work and what her management did to support her, the culture she was surrounded in, and what made a difference for her in adapting and being able to navigate uncertainty with confidence. And so right there, that's the definition of resilience. It's the ability to bounce back, adapt to change, to navigate change with confidence. So Jennifer shared what she experienced as a gap and then a resolution to that. And that was the fact that when she was supported and realizing that she was more than the person that came to work, she was a person outside. And the organization helped her adapt. They helped her realize and invested culturally in her ability to not only do her job and support her through what was a caregiving challenge, but also with resources that allowed her to become stronger in her hardship so that when she did show up at work, look at her capacity to be a partner and a productive resource. So I believe Jennifer, and if she's listening someday, she's always a catalyst to me. But it's through the fact that we all live a life, right? What I have at home, children with challenges, something you know very well, or if you have a marital issue, financial, whatever it is that we live at home, we need to be able to recognize that we have the superpowers, the resilient superpowers to handle that. Because by the nature of the fact that you and I are talking, we've already overcome everything we've overcome.
Right.
We are
Right.
strong. And so in the workplace, organizations that take the time to invest in sharing that gift, reaffirming to their employees, their teams, that they value that and they want to help them become stronger in that. So that as a person, we all want a culture that values us more than just the contribution we make in the office. I mean, the magnitude of what it gives in the workplace is exponential. People are more confident. The culture is greater. So in my talks, I take people through an exercise where I help them do their resilience inventory. So, I take them through a journey of let's write down 3 or 4 things that have been really hard for you or that you have succeeded at. And let's make a list of the resilience, the ability to adapt and bounce back got you through it. Then we flip the switch and then we reset the mindset and we go, okay, now look at what you want to do. What's that goal? What's that dream? And you apply that back to the workplace. I have to change a new role. I've been downsized, or there's less people now, or, oh my gosh, the structure of our HR is now changed and things that were there are no longer there. How do we persevere? Well, we get confident and strong in these resilient superpowers we have and we learn how to use them.
What do you think one misconception is that people have about resilience in the workplace that you'd love to clear up?
So when I did some homework on resilience in the workplace, what I saw initially was looking at helping the employees, helping the business become more resilient to cultural and environmental changes. Looking externally, and that is extremely important. But a lot of times I think how it gets judged is, resilience is something, you need to deal with yourself. You need to go figure out how you're going to be a stronger person. That's not my job, HR person or head of employee engagement or even an ERG and DE&I. I think some of the misconception is that's a personal trait, not a collective cultural trait in the company. And my argument back is strong people become strong peers. Strong peers become a strong community. And you want a strong cultural community for your company to survive and thrive in uncertainty. I'm not suggesting we trauma bond over the water cooler, but there is an element of sharing that lets somebody else go, I'm not alone. It helps somebody else go, you know what? I got that meeting on Friday. I know you blank. And instead of animosity and frustration, you've now created a team. That's priceless, especially when you look at having to rehire and retrain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can see that it would be such a critical contribution to employee engagement when a team supports each other and understands the resilience that is needed to get the whole team moving forward. The results are going to naturally happen. So many organizations right now are facing rapid change, not just because of what their company's dealing with, but just rapid change in the world around us. This could be because of leadership transitions, restructuring, or external market shifts. What can leaders do to help their teams stay resilient and adaptable during uncertain times?
I think one of the first things they can do is they can call a spade a spade. They can be transparent. They can call it out. We understand. We realize this may be And when you make it transparent, you give people the opportunity to name it and to come up with a plan on how they can face it. So you're building a path to resilience just by starting out by acknowledging that it's real. So I think when employers are trying to help their folks through change, they are transparent. They provide them the tools that make them feel empowered, that they have some control over how they adapt to that change. And then lastly, I think they need to support individuals with some level of, I call it personalized self-care. Empower your teams to know what it is that they need to be emotionally, physically, or even spiritually healthy. Because if you look at your triangle, if you make one off, you're going to fall over. A triangle needs balance. So if you can help your employees identify that balance, whatever that is, it also takes a load off the HR folks who have to deal with the policy and the operational boundaries around this kind of change. You want your employees to be able to have the skill set and the strength and the roadmap so that even if it's 25% of their concerns, their challenges that they have to adapt to, if that's not on the arms and the shoulders of HR, hallelujah, they can focus on doing the things that make the whole company run better versus the individuals they tend to. So if we can help HR, then we're all happy.
Yes, yes. As a seasoned HR leader, I can tell you that when the leaders can help their teams and individuals on their teams become more resilient, and they can equip them with the skills that they need to, I would say, first recognize the challenges that they're facing and then to talk about them in a way that builds resilience within their team. I think that everybody wins, and employee engagement is definitely on the rise when resilience is taken to a different level.
Think about it. Who hears no? 75% of their working hours. They're the folks on the front line, and giving their leaders the ability to help equip them with knowing their resilient superpowers. Mine are going to be different than yours.
Yeah.
And if I know what they are, I can lean back on them when I'm really feeling uncertain or I've lost my confidence in something. So in my house, it's an anchor for me. I know when I need to laugh. I know when I need a friend, and I know the right friend to call because it's not always the same people.
So how does someone discover their resilience superpowers?
So on the journey that I take folks through in the Resilience Roadmap, there's 5 stops on the journey. The first one is we take a resilience inventory, and that is looking at some of the hardest things you've done or the greatest accomplishments you've achieved. And I provide them a list. It's a starting point. Write down the things that you feel like got you through it. If a hardship, you can name bankruptcy, the ultimate cloak of shame I've ever worn. I didn't have a credit card for 3 years. It was a shame that I honestly felt made me less worthy. When I met my husband, he goes, "Karen, it's a car payment. I don't understand your weight around this." So take that example. How did I navigate that? Well, one of my resilience superpowers was humility. I had to tell people when I needed help with certain things if I couldn't do them myself anymore. And that enabled me to get closer to that financial independence. Another one is I had to laugh because otherwise I would start crying and I wouldn't stop. I talked to you about that. I keep coming back to community. When I moved out on my own for the first time after my divorce, I couldn't afford a mover. So I put out on our church moms group, I needed help. And on moving day, I pulled up in the 42-foot truck that I drove. Scary.
Yeah.
And people just came. Yeah. So how did I get through that? Well, how did I survive Caroline's life and death? We laughed at the unlaughable. I prayed a ton. It's a simple list, but you're looking at it a different way. And then we work to reset our mindset. We own our success. We also have to own our suffering. And when you own it, accept it, label it, and then figure out what you can do with it. And it's a journey. So at the end of this resilience roadmap, it's the gratitude for what you've accomplished or done. That's going to be your springboard to shine forward to the next one. And you can do a little resilience roadmap in 10 minutes. You can literally take yourself through the 5 steps if you're in the middle of a meeting and you're stuck, and it's going to help you be able to persevere through to the next meeting.
I think that's so wise and so helpful. How can an employee build their own resilience when they feel disengaged, overwhelmed, or uncertain about their future in their organization?
I hear self-care as a buzzword, but it's not. Can you go anywhere on an empty tank of gas? So you can't get up and go unless you take care of yourself. And before you can even go to your leader, the second piece would be is give yourself the credit for everything you've overcome and leverage that experience, that strength, that success to advocate for what you need if you need it at work.
Mm-hmm.
So your boss may not know that you're struggling with a project and you don't want to share that you're struggling with a project because in today's environment, we need to pull our weight.
Yeah.
But if you can advocate for yourself confidently, because you've already got this confidence cup that's full of all these things that you've owned, and then you need to share what's appropriate with the right people. It could be your leader, it could be a peer, it could be a friend, it could be your spouse. But if you sit in isolation, then you could be as resilient as you are given by God or you choose to be. But if you don't share it in some capacity, then we get stuck. And that's another challenge.
So it sounds like you're almost saying that no longer is it okay to just fake it until you can figure it out. You're really encouraging people to have that communication, to share what they're going through in order to be a more valuable member of a team and in order to kind of almost protect your own well-being by adding that community factor within the workplace.
Definitely. I mean, think about, I had water in my basement. I put it out on Facebook. Oh my gosh, friends, I need what do they call it? The water cleanup people. There's a name, remediation.
Oh, yes.
I had 10 recommendations, right? So think of it that simply. Again, I'm not saying you walk around the office going, my gosh, guess what happened? Yeah. But it's in a confident dialogue, meaningful connection. So it's trusting and it's being able to share and it's being able to have kind of a guideline on how you do that. And you start with understanding who you are, how you overcome things, and how you can use those to help you move forward.
What would you say to somebody who says, that just sounds like a lot of positivity? What would you say when they maybe don't see resilience as something that they need to think about in the workplace?
For folks in the workplace who just think that it's, great, you have resilience and so you can get through everything, you've overcome everything you've overcome. It didn't happen overnight, just like the journey to where you and I are in our speaking careers. You have to invest and you have to acknowledge. You have to acknowledge candidly where you are and why you feel the way you do. And then you have to accept not just why you're there, how did you get there?
Yeah.
So that's going to help refuel them and help them fill their confidence cup. And resilience is literally when I fill my coffee cup, it's got this much creamer and this much coffee. So I am hoping that when folks fill their confidence cup, there's this much resilience before they start layering all the other things that other people tend to pour in our cup, or our voices might do it too. There's going to be a struggle. You're always going to find somebody who doesn't find resilience to be a worthwhile investment. But I am a firm believer you can invest in a lot of things. We're taught all kinds of skills to do our job. Why would you not reinforce every individual in your organization or every person take 5 minutes a day to fill their confidence cup with resilience so that they're prepared for the kid who got bullied at school today, who's coming home in tears, the husband who didn't get the deal, who's upset, or you, whatever it is. And we can't control the world around us. But we absolutely can control the narrative of our own life from the inside out. And if I sound positive, it's because I am.
I believe that too. People often say, how did you do it as a childhood cancer survivor? And my first response is I didn't have a choice. I just took one step at a time forward in the whole journey. But as I look back on it, like you said, it prepared me for so many other life experiences that I've been able to help other people.
So when you were talking about the pediatric cancer, and so when I left divorce court, And I went to Caroline's Place, which is what we call the cemetery. Had an hour to kill from my friends for cocktails and French fries. Girl gotta do, guys. Girl gotta do. And I thanked Caroline for living,
Mm-hmm.
and I thanked Caroline for dying. That is a phrase that stops people in their tracks when I share that. But the reality of it is, the journey that I went through when she left this earth, and every subsequent thing that I have dealt with in my life until today, I wouldn't be here with you had that journey not happened. I wouldn't have my youngest daughter. I wouldn't be married. So I had a choice.
Right.
A fork in the road, despair, anger, or hope.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't make that choice the day after she died. That choice has happened over a series of forks in the road. And I believe that that's how you get through life, because otherwise, I mean, you have a choice.
Right.
A positive choice. I really don't. I sound like it, but I don't. But then when I don't, and I hit another hardship and I'm down in the valley, I have some time to figure some stuff out.
I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm a Gallup certified strength coach. And what that means is that I learn a lot from Gallup as an organization with regards to culture and workplace engagement and well-being. And currently, Gallup tells us that workplace engagement is at an all-time low globally and an all-time low in the United States. How do you feel like companies could improve engagement and well-being if they focused on resilience?
Well, one of the ways is they can bring in a resilience speaker and coach to help them with their employees. Of course, that's what I do. But I do think making it a priority and not making it just a word. And when you think of inclusion, that's not a word. That's a movement. Organizations need to invest in leadership that finds it valuable. And you start by training your leadership so that they feel confident in being inclusive in the teams that they lead and the environments that they work in. That comes from the words they use, to how they delegate, to even just physical environments that they create for their employees, right?
Right.
So you train your leaders in what it means to be resilient. And you also train them in what to look for where they see a gap. Because a lack of confidence, somebody who's not stepping up when you know they're capable, or who is usually a star who's shrinking back, there's a gap.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity. What's going on? And chances are they're facing something where they've lost their confidence, or they're trying to adapt to something and they're struggling. So if you're trained to be aware of that and go, wait a second, that person could just need some reinforcement around their ability to bounce back and persevere. And if you understand what that looks like from the concept of resilience, then you can share that with them, or you get them the help they need through a course or a workbook, or, start an ERG or bring it to your ERGs. And there's all different ways you can filter it down within an organization. But I do think it's, you're going to empower leaders, and then you're going to give them the skills to be able to, survey the landscape, if you will, and then they can help their employees. Literally, it could take a coffee to talk about some things. And literally, I could look at you and go, Mindy, how did you get through that last project? Well, that was doozy. It's a simple, so you're going to arm your leaders with a dialogue.
I love that. I love that. That's so great. And such an actionable step that a leader can do if they know what to look for and know how to have that conversation.
Well, and it's looking with a different set of eyes, right? You're putting on a different set of lenses instead of, man, Karen's slacking. Something's wrong. You're looking at it with, okay, something's not right. So let me ask a few discovery questions in a way that's going to allow me to be vulnerable in a safe place. As a leader, I'm going to be able to help with that challenge, or I'm not. So I can offer support, or I can reinforce them. Literally, they're going to give their own solution. But we've guided it. It's an unconditional connection, right? You're going to your employee because you care. It's not a correction. It's a caring conversation. And I think that's a vital part of the resilience roadmap, because you have to be able to safely have these conversations to open the dialogue of sharing. Because I could also go, okay, Mindy, I think let me connect you with Kim. Kim has had a similar experience, and if she's okay with it, you just created now a community for me around the personal or professional challenge that I'm going through. And our world doesn't do that. Our world tries to isolate us. We
Yeah.
compete. We're insecure. So part of this journey for leaders is maybe you create a little bit less of an isolating culture and see what happens.
If a company wanted to take one concrete step today to build a more resilient workplace, where should they start?
Transparency is the number one way that you can help the culture that your employees work in every day. Acknowledge the fact that we know things are changing. Acknowledge the fact that there is uncertainty. Fear is false expectations appearing real. A level of transparency around uncertainty and change can nip fear in the bud. And once you've nipped it in the bud and you've called a spade, and empower them. Transparency. I think anytime an organization can voice the fact that there is change and they understand it is hard. And then in step 2, you want to build the confidence cup of your employees around what they are capable of doing,
Right.
so that they can do it together. And whether that's a resilience workshop or whether that is creating forums for them to have conversation, not just having every meeting, every team meeting every week is on the topic of the agenda, the revenue projections, 10 minutes in for a conversation and filter in some of the parts of the resilience roadmap. I have a freebie on my website. I'll provide you that link where people can go and they can kind of take a journey on the resilience roadmap. And there's things in there. Talk about resetting your mindset. Talk about personalizing self-care. I mean, these are very well used words and titles, but when you put them together in the context of helping you to realize that you have this capability, it changes a little bit. So
I love that. And I will absolutely include that link in the post when I put this online, and I will make sure it's in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today, Karen. I personally learned about framing my own resilience, and I believe the tips that you've given will really help employees and leaders in the workplace to do their part to ensure that the workplace is a place where they can bring their whole self.
well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And if folks want to learn more about the Resilience Roadmap or Shine Forward, they can come check me out. I'm on all the socials as Karen Colonna Speaks. And, my website is Karen Colonna, COLONNA.com.